What's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a wonderful Saturday. It's hard to believe that draft weekends are finally upon us. I think a lot of people will be drafting this weekend. Some people wait until Labor Day, and this is exciting time for fantasy. And if you haven't done your draft yet, you can sneak one more mock draft in there, maybe a couple more. And wanted to go ahead and keep going down the list. We've done a few of these thus far, but still trying to hit pretty much every position in the draft. So for this one, we're going to switch over to FantasyPros because I feel like our drafts are starting to look pretty similar when we use Sleeper. Nothing wrong with Sleeper. I really like that platform as a whole, but I want to make sure that we at least get you guys some different exposure to some of the different league settings out there, just to make sure that we have diversified approach. So we're going to do this on FantasyPros. Same settings. We're going to do 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 1 tight end, and 2 flex spots, 6 bench in total. So 14 players, and let's get into it. Now, obviously, our target here in the picking at pick 8, it's pretty much the same. We've been arguing from the very beginning. Like, if you are drafting pretty much anywhere, your hope is that you get 2 of those top 14 running backs. What's going on here? You want to get 2 of those top 14 running backs. If you can't, then we pivot a little bit. But what's nice when you have anything beyond pick 6 in the 12-team league, you have the opportunity. So when we're looking at different guys that we can draft here, you have the opportunity to take 2 of those running backs here and completely smash at that position, and then you can just completely pivot around at that point to wide receiver. Now, based on our rankings, I have Miles Sanders slightly ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I think we'll end up going ahead and taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire here, going at falling to us at pick 8. I was thinking we'd get Derrick Henry, but doesn't look like that happened this time. So let's go ahead. We'll start our draft with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and see who makes it back to us in the second round. Now, pick 8, pick 7, pick 8, you run into a weird instance where sometimes a running back doesn't make it back to you. It just depends on how many people take receivers, but looks like our punting of Miles Sanders paid off for us, and we are now going to be able to start with a insane start of Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Miles Sanders. I don't really think there's a possible better start drafting the back half of your draft. If you can start with C. Yates and Miles Sanders, you're going to completely smash your league. So I'm not even going to debate this one for very long. Absolutely incredible start. Now, when we get to the third round, this is where we start to, debate. Do we have to go receiver right away, or do we want to do the triple running back? Most of the time I'm going to end up taking receiver, but I do really like Jonathan Taylor. Trying to look here at ADP, it looks like Jonathan Taylor's ADP is suppressed a little bit. So I'm going to take my favorite receiver here, and we're going to just keep smashing this draft and go DJ Moore. Following my rankings, this would be a very, very strong start. Absolutely love DJ Moore this year. I think he's going to completely eat in Carolina this year. So we see Robert Woods go. That hurts a little bit. Also, we see Amari Cooper go off the board. Keenan Allen a little bit early. I'm used to seeing him go in the 5th or 6th round, so ADP here is a little bit different. So let's pause. Want to go ahead and take a peek here at who is actually here now that we're kind of getting into the realm of possibly reaching at people. Let's hide tiers here. Okay, so at this point, receivers we still got on the board. We've got Cooper Kupp, Calvin Ridley, DJ Chark, Terry McLaurin, Tyler Lockett. Actually pretty receiver heavy at this point in the draft. I do like Calvin Ridley. He's the last guy in that tier for me. Like Tyler Lockett a lot as well as DJ Chark, but there's still a decent amount of running backs here as well. And the one guy that I was looking at previously, I want to see, I think we can land with some decent wide receiver talent later on. I want to take the shot at the extreme upside of Jonathan Taylor, who could really take over that backfield in week 1 playing against Jacksonville. So we're going to take Jonathan Taylor here and not even worry about it. So all right, so that starts our draft out with Miles Sanders, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DJ Moore, and Jonathan Taylor. see who makes it back to us. So Terry McLaurin, Tyler Lockett, Devontae Parker, DJ Chark all go off the board. That is a little disappointing because that leaves us with the next tier of receivers. So the two guys I'm still looking at here from a receiver perspective, I'm not a big fan of Hilton or Diggs this year. I think they're both going to be up and down. Jarvis Landry scares me with that injury. We could go for the upside with Marquise Brown, but I really like AJ Green and Michael Gallup. There's a chance we might be able to get both of them. I think I'm going to go ahead and go with Michael Gallup just because that we're still waiting to hear a little bit more on that hamstring injury for AJ Green, and I think there's a chance that AJ Green comes back to us and we can grab him as our wide receiver 3. So we'll take Michael Gallup here. At this point, we're going to be punching the running back spot for a little bit longer because we have a lot of strength there, but we need to make sure we get a few receivers in. Evan Ingram goes at the 5'10". Dak Prescott goes off the board. I would have thought about stacking him, but as we stated, AJ Green comes back to us. I mean, when we're talking about a 6th round pick, there's the potential for him to completely bust. And with that hamstring injury, I've definitely been a little bit more cautious about drafting him. We still have guys like Cam Akers as an incredible value here, considering we already have 3 running backs. We might just take the strong running back approach and just punt the position for the rest of the draft. Screw it. I'm going to take Cam Akers. Cam Akers is looking to actually get a full workload starting the year. It looks like Darrell Henderson is actually going to be out for. He could potentially start or play in week 1, but I don't think he's going to be completely healthy. The hamstring injury that he's dealing with is a little bit more moderate than we've seen from some of the other players, and I was never really a huge fan of Darrell Henderson anyway, so we'll see who ends up making it back to us at receiver. AJ Green almost made it back to us at the 708. So a similar problem that you run into at the 708 or at the 8 slot that you do in the 6, where every time you make a pick, it's likely that the person that you were thinking about taking will never make it back to you. So one pick away, just this close to being able to take AJ Green there, but I'm okay. Overall, I still really like Michael Gallup there. Marquise Brown went off the board as well. Marvin Jones is still here. I think Marvin Jones at least gives us decent upside, and we're really going to start needing to fill out our roster with some upside receivers here. John Brown is an interesting name as well because he was pretty good last year, and with Stephon Diggs coming on, there's a argument for John Brown actually being pretty good this year, not having to deal with the number 1 cornerback. We're stacked at running back, so I don't really think I'm going to be looking at guys like James White. Julian Edelman is also interesting to me. I think he's declining a little bit. So Julian Edelman, Marvin Jones, and Brandon Cooks are all guys I like. They're all similar tier for me. We have Julian Edelman ranked just above Marvin Jones. I think we'll go with the potential of what Julian Edelman could be. I really like Cam Newton a lot this year, and we'll probably end up drafting Cam Newton, so we'll get the stack. We'll take Julian Edelman here and probably have to take a few more receivers just to make up for it, but really like the depth that we have at the running backs. This is a very receiver-heavy draft compared to what I've seen, which helped for our running backs overall, but definitely made receivers a little bit more difficult. So we see Brandon Cooks come back to us. I think that is the pick we're going to go with here. I think Brandon Cooks has a very good opportunity to be the number 1 receiver there in Houston with DeAndre Hopkins gone, massive amount of vacated targets. We need upside with this pick. Not really highly sold on Deontay Johnson, still dealing with an injury, missed a good bit of training camp, and I'm not really sold on the Steelers offense as a whole this year. So we're going to go ahead and take Brandon Cooks here as our wide receiver 4. So pretty much did what we normally do is kind of come out of those first 8 rounds with a pretty straightforward balance between receiver and running back. So we see Deontay Johnson, Christian Kirk go. That would have been another name I would have looked at here. But Sterling Shepard makes his way back to us. Sterling Shepard has been absolutely killing it in camp. I think he gives us pretty decent depth, but I'm really also looking at a guy like Jalen Reagor here. I think it gives us a little bit more upside, just considering the strength in our team at running back and the fact that we actually need some more potential starters at receiver. I think Sterling Shepard is probably the pick here, but I wouldn't fault you for taking Jalen Reagor. It's just there's no guarantee he's going to have an immediate role. So we'll go ahead and take Sterling Shepard here. Going to need to start thinking about quarterback and tight end at some point, but I mean, at this point, I'm mostly just focused on rounding out the receivers to make up for the lack of depth we had there by going running back so strong at the beginning. All right, so let's see. Let's see what we got here. So at this point in the draft, we have 4 running backs and 5 wide receivers. Let's pull up our roster so we can kind of just break this down for a second. So absolutely dominant start at running back. We got Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Miles Sanders. You got DJ Moore and Michael Gallup, Jonathan Taylor, Cam Akers. So 3 rookie running backs here. We're all in on the rookies this year. And then for some depth, we've got Julian Edelman, Brandon Cooks, and Sterling Shepard. So I'm fine with that, especially in a league where you only have to start 2 receivers. If we're worried about Jonathan Taylor, we can swap him out with one of these receivers, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire is killing in camp. Cam Akers is pretty much the main starter there. So absolutely fine with the way that this turned out from a running back perspective. Like I said, at this point in the draft now, coming into the double-digit rounds, start thinking about quarterback. Carson Wentz is still here, who I like a lot. Tom Brady, I'm not exactly sold on. I really like Cam Newton. And then from a tight end spot, we've got Mike Gesicki, Tyler Higbee, who I like. Hunter Henry could, see a lot of increase in targets with Mike Williams being out for a period of time. So there's still enough tight ends there that I don't feel like I necessarily need to reach on one. I think one will make it back to me at the 11th. We're going to stick with our my guy here. Well, no, let's... We'll go ahead and take Carson Wentz. I think the upside of Carson Wentz is actually pretty decent. We'll stack him with Miles Sanders and go with that. Well, let me just double check one more thing. Did Jalen Reagor go? Okay, so it's a good thing I looked. And always, before you hit that draft button, always double check. So Jalen Reagor was a guy we were looking at before. Right now we have 5 receivers. Since we went heavy on running back first, I want 6 receivers. I want some upside. So we took a floor pick with Edelman and Shepard. We took some upside with Cooks. Michael Gallup, I think, is a mix of both, and DJ Moore is massive upside. So we need one more upside pick at receiver. So we're going to take Jalen Reagor here. I don't know that Carson Wentz will make it back to us, but that's okay because I still like Cam Newton. I still like Ryan Tannehill. I still like Jared Goff. So there's plenty of people that can still make it back to us that I'm not worried about quarterback at this point. And I think that's a big point. If you guys are drafting this week or next week, and this is one of your first drafts that you've done, if you're still just looking for general tips, remember you do not have to draft players for your starting roster before your bench. Sometimes it makes sense, but for the quarterback and tight end position, there's enough depth later on that you can punt the quarterback spot, the tight end spot, for a while and make sure that you have quality receivers and running backs before you start jumping over to quarterback and tight end. So if I take Carson Wentz, I'm stacking him with Miles Sanders and Jalen Reagor. If I take Cam Newton, I'm stacking him with Julian Edelman. I really like both of these guys. I think Carson Wentz is a bit of a safer play, whereas Cam Newton is a bit more of the ceiling play. So for the sake of our brands and the fact that we've given Cam Newton the nod of approval, I'm going to take Cam Newton here. I think Cam Newton is going to have a pretty dominant season, and Cam Newton has never finished outside of the top 4 at the quarterback position when he plays 16 games. So technically I have Carson Wentz ranked ahead of Cam Newton there, but I'm going to stick with my guns. And then we see Mike Gesicki go off the board. That's a little bit disappointing, but I still really like TJ Hawkinson. Absolutely love Jonnu Smith. Fine with Chris Herndon. Fine with Blake Jarwin overall. I think we're going to take the upside with TJ Hawkinson here, and then we'll come back and grab one more tight end. Because at this point in the draft, because we waited so long on tight end, you want to take 2. And that's really the strategy that I'm looking at dominating with this year is if you take 2 tight ends, you're really locking in the chance at hitting the next Mark Andrews, hitting the next Darren Waller, and that's really been the league-winning play at tight end for past couple years. If you don't get George Kittle or Travis Kelce, you really want to try to find that next breakout guy, and I think TJ Hawkinson has a chance to do that. Definitely have Mike Gesicki up there with the potential Noah Fant, Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith, my only concern for him is volume, but I think he's a talented enough athlete that I'm going to take the chance and take Jonnu Smith here. And then we'll take a floor running back play at some point just to round out this draft. So I'm really happy with this draft overall. Wide receivers are maybe a tad bit weaker on the top than I'm used to drafting on Sleeper. The running backs go a little bit earlier, but the ADP here just really shifted things to where I felt very strong and bullish about taking 4 running backs early. And I'm fine with Michael Gallup as my wide receiver too. I just need one of these 4 guys on my bench to hit above their ADP between Sterling Shepard, Rager, Brandon Cooks, and Julian Edelman. TJ Hawkinson and Jonnu Smith both gave me upside plays at tight end, and I think Cam Newton is at least going to smash in week 1 playing against Miami. So at this point, like I said, we're going to look at running back. Joshua Kelly has been killing in camp and getting a lot of buzz. Benny Snell is the backup to James Conner, who at this point, I mean, you can't really project injury, but James Conner has shown he's not able to finish the season. So if you want a floor play, I think Benny Snell is it. A ceiling play, I think, would be Joshua Kelly, who could really have a role right away. For the sake of avoiding taking 4 rookie running backs, we're going to take Benny Snell here, but I wouldn't mind either play there. So we'll finish this draft with Benny Snell. And like I said, I'm pretty satisfied with that overall. And you really only need one quarterback at the end of the day when you come in. We don't care about the consensus experts because, as we know, consensus is just what everyone thinks into a pool, but that doesn't guarantee that they're actually going to be right. So Cam Newton, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, DJ Moore, Michael Gallup, TJ Hawkinson, Jonathan Taylor, Cam Akers, Julian Edelman, Brandon Cooks, Sterling Shepard, Jalen Rager, Jonnu Smith, and Benny Snell. What do you guys think of that draft? I'm really happy with that. If I got that at pick 8, I would be ecstatic, especially getting Miles Sanders in the second round. And then, waiting and still being able to get a few value plays at quarterback and tight end, I think was really good. And that is really good upper tier depth at running back overall. So I'm pretty pumped with this team. Jalen Rager was a value later in the draft as well. And so be super happy if this was my team on draft day. But you let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comment section below, and we'll see you guys in the next video.